Well, I mean, taking it from something as big as the government and as big as, being able to tap into mass population and taking it just straight into identity in yourself. One of the coolest things that I do want to tap into is behavioral science. You talk about social identity priming, which taps into how our social surroundings inflict in our sense of self. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we are so heavily influenced by how the people around us behave and act. It's kind of extraordinary. Um, there was one study they ran where they were trying to motivate people to use less energy. And they
Mm,
tried all sorts of tactics, like all sorts of incentives to try to get people to use less energy, right? Financial incentives, knocking on doors, canvassing, hanging little posters here and there. The one thing that worked at getting people to use less energy was to tell them what their neighbors' usage was like. And when they found out that their neighbors were in some cases using less energy than them, it was very effective at getting them to use less energy themselves. And so we do find time and time again that if we do know there is a healthy social norm out there,
yeah.
right? The data aligns with what we as a society would hope for, right? More people, more kids doing their math homework, or more people voting, or in this case, more people caring about the environment, we can use that data, those statistics, to actually motivate positive behavior change in others.
One of the things that I speak about so often is when it comes to your own identity, right? And being able
Mm,
to peel off sort of the leeches of other people's opinions that have then come over time that you then start to believe that are your own. And especially in the body image and self image world, we talk a lot about society's beauty standards and being able to sort of rewrite what that looks like for you and your own
mm.
relationship with your body really comes from starting to see yourself through your own eyes. How can somebody start to change that in a behavioral science approach and taking away, the blockers that are coming in consistently because other people are inflicting their own opinions or perceptions of yourself?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you bring up this example because it reminds me of an interview that I did for A Slight Change of Plans with a woman named Elna Baker.
Mm,
She believed in her life that if she could just become thin, if she could just lose weight, all of her life dreams would come true, right? She would be able to live her absolute dream life.
yeah.
And so she did it. She ended up losing close to 100 pounds in 5.5 months. And for a while, she did think that she was living a better version of her life. Things were coming more easily to her. She was dating all these guys that she hadn't been able to date before, et cetera, et cetera. But then she slowly started to realize that she was actually becoming a worse person. She
Mm.
felt herself becoming more superficial. She felt that she was not treating people as nicely as she had before. She felt before that, she cared so much about belonging. It was bringing out the best in her, right? And that in this new Elna world, she was just getting things easily. And it made her disenchanted with society. And it forced her to realize, I may have lost all this weight, but I actually feel like I've lost core parts of myself that I valued a lot, right? Like, she found herself being more self-conscious and less bold than she had before the weight loss. And so what that story taught me, and I think will teach listeners, is that change doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? We can really hope, oh, if I can, you know, I'll be Maya, I'll just be this better version of Maya. But actually, what Elna taught us is that when you change one part of your life, there can be all sorts of spillover effects into other parts of your life that you simply can't predict. And so you have to have a sense of humility when it comes to confronting change, especially change related to body image. And I think Elna's ultimate discovery was actually losing weight was not the answer to her problem. The actual issue is that she was unhappy. And
Mm.
so years of therapy is what ended up helping her problem, like actually understanding what was at the root cause of her sadness. And I think it took this pretty gut-wrenching experience for her to learn this very valuable lesson about what actually constitutes self-worth and value.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of a story of a friend of mine who actually she lost a ton of weight, became a bodybuilder, and then wrote a book afterwards about her journey. Actually, becoming a bodybuilder was actually more detrimental to her just allowing her body to go where it was meant to be because it
Mhm.
was really about her connection to who she was that she needed to be able to work on to then feel grounded again moving forward and what she wanted to do with her purpose. I wanted to sort of ask you, do you think these behavioral, changes or these ideas of how we look upon our purpose really inflict on our mental well-being journey, um, just in general?
Yeah, I mean, another thing that I learned from Elna's interview on A Slight Change of Plans is that what was actually at the core of a large part of her identity was the constant need to optimize and
Mm,
improve herself. And I remember asking her at the end of the interview, you spent all those years going through hell trying to lose all this weight. And now you're going through all these years in therapy and self-help. And she said she's read every self-help book under the sky. She's seen yogis, she's done psychedelics, like she's done the whole process of trying to engage in self-actualization. And I asked her, I said, do you actually feel that maybe in part you're like addicted to the idea of just changing yourself and that at some point you just have to be, right? You just have to like exist. And I do worry sometimes that our culture is so focused right now on self-improvement, that we do feel like unless we are that aspirational version each and every day, we're letting ourselves down. And we're not worthy. And I couldn't disagree with that more. I think sometimes just acceptance and being willing to exist in this moment and appreciate what you have, is the right way to be.
I completely agree. I mean, radical acceptance is one of the things I preach about the most. Like, I
Mm,
think that it's so silly when somebody says that they're working for their future or they're working for the tomorrow. And it's like, well, let's work for the today that will then get you to the tomorrow. There's no need for you to look in the mirror while you're in this period of not knowing how to love yourself and to hate yourself in that period to get to loving yourself. Let's start tricking the mind to loving yourself today to then continue to love yourself even more tomorrow, kind of thing.